As much as I've dreamed about destroying Hunter Hearst Helmsley,
I know you have.
as many horrible things as I'd like to do to him,
I know you can.
I know someone who dreams about it even more.
Who is it, Manny?
Someone who's willing to do even worse things than I am.
Oh, no. Are you thinking what I think you're thinking?
I think I am thinking what you think. I think you're thinking.
Can you bring him out, Manny?
Here he comes.
Where is he?
Cactus Jack. He's back.
Somebody sniped me. I thought he was dead.
He's alive. He's alive. It may be the darkest day of your life because it's Madison Square Garden and Mrs. Foley's little boy.
Bye-bye.
Bang, bang.
Oh, have mercy.
What in the world? Welcome to Last Match Standing, the podcast where we review, relive, and rank the 100 greatest wrestling matches of all time. I'm Spencer.
I'm Paul.
I'm Landon.
And we have got a good one for you today. January 23rd, 2000, the Royal Rumble, Triple H versus Cactus Jack, and of course, a street fight for the WWF Championship from Madison Square Garden.
Oh,
yeah, the world's most famous venue, and I got a lot to say about this one, so you both do. I want to say first up, this is the feud that got me into professional wrestling. I was 10 years old when this happened, and I just so excited to talk about it.
In the Garden. God, how many great matches have come out of just that building alone?
It's incredible to think about, and it's a shame that in some ways, it's a shame that that venue can't really host the bigger wrestling events now.
True, yeah.
Because imagine just how much that adds to some of these matches, right? And so when you see Madison Square Garden, just from the opening shot, when they look into it, they try to pack as many people into that arena as they can. You just automatically, you can't help but think of how iconic and how historic that building is. And it just adds an extra layer to everything that you see in it.
So I want to go ahead and give a shout out to everybody who voted on the Twitter poll. So this match is a product of your votes. So thank you so much for voting. This match beat out some really great other matches that I'm sure we'll get to, just because those other two matches did not make it to the list. I promise you we are not going to not cover Ric Flair versus Shawn Michaels.
Well,
we'll get there.
I feel like this is actually really interesting because I think it's going to start a trend for me personally throughout the course of this show. And that is that whatever I suggest to be voted on will lose week in and week out.
Every week.
That's what I expect.
We will make a
happen.
point to make that happen, Spencer. Don't worry.
So we just won't let anyone know what I picked.
But I'm so happy that this one went in because this match always comes to mind when I think of the greatest matches of all time. This is the match that established Triple H as the top guy. And he would stay the top guy until like 2006. So with 6 years on top for Triple H. And this is where it all starts.
And I love that you said that because this is just about the quintessential Triple H type of match.
Yeah.
Right? Where he is the heel. He somehow escapes with a win when he's facing one of the most loved characters in the business. Right? So for him to win, this really kind of set the pace for what would be his career run on top. No, I agree. And one of my favorite things about this match is, and I believe it was Mick Foley who said it, he said, I've seen Triple H walk before this match, and I've seen him try to walk after this match. And I think that's a very telling thing about it. I think it says everything you need to know. And when the show opens, the Royal Rumble, the show opens, the very first promo that opens the show, you don't get anything about the Rumble match. No. It's not even mentioned. The only match mentioned is Cactus Jack Triple H. And there's a line from it that I just love from Cactus Jack, and he says in that promo, "There will be no laughter, no regret, and no remorse." Mm-hmm. That opening promo is great, but like you said, the entire show is built around this match. It's almost as if the Royal Rumble match itself is kind of an afterthought, even though it technically is the main event. And even years later, it's still an afterthought on that night. The 2000 Royal Rumble is not one people remember in a lot of good ways, typically, but it's just not a match that comes to mind when you think of the Royal Rumble match. Oh, agreed. So when you think of Royal Rumble 2000,
you think about Triple H Cactus Jack.
I think of that. I also think of the first tag team tables match between the Hardys and the Dudley Boys. And I think the amazing debut for Taz that was never followed up on.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I completely forgot about that. This was a huge pay-per-view.
This is considered to be one of the best shows that WWE has ever produced.
Well, and a lot of people consider 2000 to be the greatest year in wrestling.
They do. With good reason.
I'm one of
With
them.
good reason.
I'm
There's
definitely
a
one of
lot
those
of reason
people.
for that. This is such an interesting time for the WWF. It's the first pay-per-view of the new year. 2000, they had to put their best foot forward, and for the most part, they did. And there's no better standard for that than this street fight that we get. And, Paul and I were talking about this before. JR said something to the effect of, to say that this has been a war would be an understatement. And so that's something that he says about the buildup of the match. But it really just shows you how serious and intense it's going to be.
Oh, yeah. The build for this one was very, very intense and very, very personal.
Why don't you take us there?
Oh, sure. So the build for this match really starts at SummerSlam 99. The main event of SummerSlam 99 was a triple threat match between Triple H, Mankind, and Steve Austin. Now, the story going into it is that Austin did not want to do business with Triple H, so they added Mick Foley to the match, and Mick actually wins that match after Jesse Ventura, who's a special guest referee, calls it right in the middle. And I say that because there is no fewer than 4 times that night where you see him talking to competitors saying, the pinfall's going to happen in the ring. That means nothing to this. But anyway, so the night after SummerSlam 99, Triple H breaks Jim Ross's arm in an effort to get Mick Foley to defend the title against him. With interference from China and Shane McMahon, he wins. Okay, Triple H is now the WWF champion. The next week on Raw, he comes out and he gets in Linda McMahon's face and he's like, what are you going to do about it, Linda? Your husband's not here anymore. Vince McMahon returns after being gone forever after the end of an era First Blood match. We'll talk about that at some point. He reappears and beats the crap out of Triple H. On SmackDown, Vince McMahon versus Triple H. Vince McMahon wins. Vince McMahon's the WWF champion. The next night on Raw, guys, I'm going to vacate this belt because I'm not supposed to be here, in case you forgot about a contract stipulation. Stone Cold Steve Austin comes out and says, that's okay, son. If you give me a title match, I'll let you be on TV again. So then we go to Unforgiven, 6-pack challenge. Going into Unforgiven, Triple H had to win 5 matches in a gauntlet. He had to beat Viscera and Midian in a casket match. He had to beat the Big Show in a chokeslam contest. He had to beat Mankind in a boiler room brawl. He had to beat The Rock in a Brahma Bull rope match. And he had to beat Kane in an Inferno match.
Can I watch this? Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. It's one of the very first episodes of SmackDown. So kind of fast forwarding to this a little bit. After the McMahon-Helmsley regime becomes a thing after Armageddon, the very first night of the regime era, Mankind walks out and says, I think the McMahon-Helmsley era kind of sucks. So they say, all right, fine. You and The Rock pink slip in a pole match. The Rock wins that match. And they say, Mick, all right, you're fired. So they kick Mick out of the company. He's gone for 5 weeks. Over these 5 weeks, they keep airing segments called Have a Bad Day, where they get another wrestler who's dressed up like Mick Foley doing a very, very terrible Mankind impression.
Midian, as a matter of fact.
It's actually Midian. So he has to do a fake book signing for Have a Nice Day too. But since the WWE's not promoting the book, nobody shows up. He goes to like a doctor's office, and it's a very, very racist impression of an Asian man named Dr. Hung Lo. Oh yeah.
Of course it is.
Leave it to Triple H to have a go at the Asians, guys. Anyway, so then they do another skit where he's got like the giant Groucho Marx mustache on, and he's like Harry Sachs. It's like, oh, I get it, it's funny. And then on, I believe
Harry Sachs, I get it.
Yes. And it's actually on the January 4th of Raw. The Rock and the entire roster walk out and say, if you do not meet our demands, we are all going to walk out and start our own company, which would have been called the World Rock Federation. But that's not important.
That's a good little trivia question.
Oh, yeah, it's a great one.
You just keep that one forever.
Oh, exactly. And basically, all right, fine, what are your demands? We want you to reinstate Mick Foley, and he deserves a title shot. And they say, fine, you're on. They have a match. Mick loses. He's gone for 2 weeks. He comes back on SmackDown, and he's still wearing his bloody shirt and his mask. And he comes out, and he says, if there's one thing I am not, that's ready to face you in the Garden for that title. But I know somebody who is. Takes off the mask. He stops recording. I think you know the guy pretty well. He tears off his shirt and he's wearing the Cactus Jack shirt. I'm getting goosebumps right now. And Triple H goes from confident to freaking out, losing his mind immediately. And he says his name is Cactus Jack. And he's going to kick your ass all over the city of Chicago. And he storms the ring, beats up Triple H, beats up Midian. It's like, oh my God, here we go. And then that is kind of how we get there, guys. And it's just, he did such a good job because whenever he walks out and says, I'm not ready to face you at the Rumble, the crowd doesn't start chanting for anybody else. They don't start like the Rocky chants or anybody else. The crowd gets quiet, like, oh, what's going to happen here? And then when he reveals Cactus Jack, it's such a powerful moment. Like, you can watch that entire episode of SmackDown on the network. I recommend it highly. It's fantastic.
Well, and this match is really interesting to me because as we touched on, there was that pink slip match between The Rock and Mankind. And so Mick Foley was gone. He was done. He was on his way out. I mean, he's an old man at this point, right? I mean, how old is he, Paul?
I believe he was 32 years old.
Okay, well, he's not an old man. But really, 32? I don't know. I feel like he was older than that.
He was early 30s. He was not
Paul,
very old.
So there's going to be a trend on this podcast where Paul is going to say something, and he's going to be absolutely right because he's Paul. And I am going to think that he's wrong. And I'm going to be like, really? I don't know. And then Dustin's going to look it up, and Paul's going to be right every time.
Well, I know he's early 30s, but he had been wrestling for 15 years.
And he looks like he's been wrestling for 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at Mick Foley at this point, he's got his hair all long and curly because it's covering up that missing ear and countless other things.
He was 34 years old.
Okay, so I was close.
Wow. That's
young
insane.
man.
See, Paul's right.
Old man. But the damage that he's taken in his career up to this point and the way he sort of exhibits himself, he could pass for 40 plus.
Right. So what I'm saying is Mick Foley's on his way out, right?
Yeah.
He's ready to rest.
Well, that's why they gave him 5 weeks off so he could rest and get recovered because Mick was eyeballing retirement at this point.
Exactly. But he said, before I'm out the door, I'm putting somebody over. I'm going to make a star out of somebody. And he chose Triple H. So in almost like a mirror image of what happened in last week's match with Bret Hart and Steve Austin, where Bret Hart, he knew he was kind of getting towards the end of his career, and he was like, I need to find somebody to put a fire under and make the fans fall in love with before I'm gone. And he chose Steve Austin. And Mick Foley did that here with Triple H.
Well, I wouldn't say he made the fans fall in love with Triple H so much as he made the fans hate Triple H so much that they would pay money to see somebody
But in wrestling,
beat him.
that's the same thing.
Same thing.
Absolutely. Great job, Paul, with the build. You're absolutely right. That was really good stuff. It was a match that felt like years in the making, right? It felt that way.
Well, technically it was. The first match between Triple H and Cactus Jack was actually the Raw after SummerSlam in 1997.
Wasn't that Mick Foley's debut in the company?
No, that was Mick Foley debuted a year earlier. He debuted the night after WrestleMania 12.
Okay.
But they had a brief feud in the summer of 97, but it was between Mankind and Triple H and then Dude Love and Triple H. And that's how they debuted Cactus Jack. Triple H comes out on Raw, Falls Count Anywhere match, and he's like demanding, all right, Dude Love, Mankind, whoever, I want to face you. Dude Love music comes on, and it is a pre-tape. You see Dude Love going, hey, guys, Hunter, I'm not coming to face you out there. Are you crazy? That's not my bag, baby. But I know somebody whose bag it is. He's a very kind man. It's my main mandible, Mankind. And then Mankind walks up on the Love Shack with Dude Love. And he's like, as much as I've dreamt about destroying Hunter Hearst Helmsley, there's somebody out there who has thought about it even more. It's like, are you talking about who I think you're talking about? Like, if you think I'm thinking what I think you think I'm thinking, then yes, it is. Well, bring him out. It's Cactus Jack. And then Cactus Jack walks out in the Love Shack. So you see all three faces of Foley.
Some great film work here.
Oh, it's amazing.
Fantastic.
And then he says, Mrs. Foley's baby boy is coming home. And then he walks out the curtain, beats the ever-loving shit out of Triple H in Madison Square Garden, of all places.
Wow. Okay. So it all comes full circle.
Exactly.
That's really great.
Well, in the opening promo, at one point, he says, you may be the game, but I've played this game and I've won.
Yeah. Well, so the build up to this match was epic, and it led for what I consider the best promo package of all time. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like two. Okay, so you disagree?
It's really good. It's so good. I don't know if it's the best of all time.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say things like that because I make sweeping declarations, but It's really, really impressive. It's like 2.5 minutes.
Oh,
I
it's
couldn't.
fantastic.
I couldn't. My eyes were glued. So, and here I looked up a little bit about this because I was like, this is insanely good. This is above average. So apparently, in 1999, Vince Russo left WWE. And the angels opened up in the sky, and everyone was like super happy. But so Vince Russo leaves, and replacing him is Chris Kresge, who is a writer from MTV. He joined the WWE and started doing like storyboarding. And he was just like, look, guys, we need to be telling long-term stories, more coherent, long-form storytelling. And by God, 2000 is widely known as one of the best years in wrestling because of that.
Yeah,
and because of Kresge's amazing, storytelling.
Yeah, Chris Kresge comes in late 99, and then pretty much January through like October is considered to be like the best, like that 10 months of wrestling.
The Kresge era.
There's not like a bad pay-per-view. There's some misfires here and there, but as far as like storytelling goes, this is when you get like Cactus Jack and Triple H, and you get Triple H and The Rock. And then you get Triple H and Kurt Angle, Triple H and Chris Jericho. You get Triple H and Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
And then it just goes on like all these great feuds people remember from this time frame like that. You can think a lot of that to this man.
Well, and thank God they did, because like, okay, so by the end of 2000, Stephanie McMahon kind of takes over Kresge's creative role a little bit. He was head writer, but Stephanie McMahon has a little bit of the creative process going. But because of what Kresge built, they were able to save the company while Austin was out with a neck injury. So their biggest guy, Stone Cold Steve Austin, he was the guy that was carrying the company on his back. He's gone. So if they didn't have The Rock, what would they have done?
Well, that's a good point, but they had to have a villain. And Triple H is one of the best villains they've ever had, particularly at this time when he is so hated by the fans, including me. I was 10 years old. I wanted this man to die. I hated him so much.
Exactly. And that was because of Kresge's storytelling.
Oh, yeah. And matches like this.
And it's one of those things, we talk about the long form storytelling that WWF was good at during this time. But when you watch the match, there's little nods to the story throughout the entirety of the match, which is wonderful, because that's something that we've talked about that we don't see as much anymore. We don't see these sort of things in ring that have anything to do at all with the story itself. So that's something that we love when we get to this match. And the build was great. The opening promo of the segment was superb. Like, it really was fantastic. But that brings us to January 23rd, 2000. In a match where Cactus Jack is basically billed as this sadistic, extreme. He's going to do anything he needs to do to beat Triple H. And so I love that, because it sets everyone up for how intense this match is going to be. And for a lot of reasons, it surpasses people's expectations with how extreme it gets.
Oh, I think so too. I don't think anybody was prepared for the carnage we see in this match. But what I love about that is going into this, Triple H had beaten Mankind several times. He wasn't afraid of him. But the minute he hears that name, Cactus Jack, you see the change in Triple H's face, because the camera's on his face when Mick says Cactus Jack, and he's smiling, I'm the best. You can't. You see like all the color drain from his face. And when he walks out, he's scared. When like Mick is staring at him with this, I wrote down, he looks like a rabid dog. This Cactus. He just looks, the look in his eyes, his body language, and he's just standing perfectly still. Triple H is walking. He's shaking. He's unsure of himself. The overconfident heel is unsure of himself in this match, and I get goosebumps, guys. I'm sorry. I cannot. This match is so good.
Well, when Cactus Jack comes out, JR says during his entrance, "This ain't Mrs. Foley's baby boy."
Oh yeah,
and it's not. And that Mankind character that became so loved turns into this Cactus Jack character who is out for blood.
And they do so much to sell how maniacal Cactus Jack is. So if you notice, whenever Triple H comes out, at this point, Triple H has that badass new theme that everyone thinks is his favorite, his best theme of all time.
I agree.
And he comes out. What were you gonna say?
It sounds like you don't think it's his best theme of all time.
I don't think it's his best theme of all time, but a lot of people do, and for good reason. It's an excellent theme. But he always comes out with Stephanie, and this is his thing. It's the McMahon Helmsley era And so they come out together, and they do. Halfway down the ramp, Triple H tells her to go back to the locker room because he knew. They're selling how dangerous this match is.
And I love that you said that, because typically when you see that now, or when you see that even then, when someone sent their manager, so to speak, back to the back, it was because they were showing how tough they were. Like, I'm going to do this by myself. But that was not at all the case with Triple H, because he was like, this is going to be ugly. This is going to be bloody. And I don't want you to see this.
I agree. I really feel it's more like I don't want you to get hurt, and I don't want you to see me get hurt.
And
That's
it had one of the best stages ever with the taxi.
The
coming
alleyway
down,
with the taxi
right?
is so great.
So great.
If you haven't seen Royal Rumble 2000, pause this podcast right now and go watch it, because it's really just everything from the set to the promos to the quality matches. It's one of the best pay-per-views of the early 2000s.
We'll be here waiting for you when you're finished.
Yes.
So
Please come back.
back.
Wow.
But that's not the only nuance of Triple H's entrance. If you will go back, and I had to watch, I've seen this match 100 times, but I didn't notice this until today. When Triple H is coming out, after he sends Stephanie back, he doesn't get in the ring. He walks around to the timekeeper, and he hands Howard Finkel a bag and says, "Hold this." And Howard takes it and sets it next to the ring bell. Then he gets in the ring and he's going to do his usual thing. He doesn't do it. He doesn't do the water bottle and spit the water because he's intimidated by Jack. He gives the belt to the referee, and then he very, very, very gingerly climbs in the ring. And once again, he looks into the eyes of Cactus Jack, and you just see so much fear. And Jack immediately pounces on him.
And this is a good point. I'm glad you brought up the belt. Did either of you remember that this was a championship match?
Oh, yeah.
it almost didn't matter.
It didn't.
That's how intense this rivalry was. Like, yes, it's a big deal, and the WWF Championship matters. But it almost was like I care much more about seeing Cactus Jack get his revenge.
That's what I'm saying.
Triple H.
So when the story and the match itself surpasses even the championship belt, you know you're watching one of the greatest matches of all time.
This is the definition of a blood feud in wrestling.
So that gets us to the actual match, right? So after all this anticipation, all these little nuances in the entrance, we get to the actual match. And we've got JR and King on commentary. King, who, by the way, is in just incredible form.
Oh, he's in
during
top
this
form
match.
tonight.
He's
Rare
just
form.
so good. And then you got Earl Hebner, the referee. Who else could it have possibly been?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that just makes the most sense. So now the stage is set for the street fight for the WWF Championship. And early on, it's a brawl immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You said that, Paul. So Cactus Jack jumps on Triple H, and Triple H is playing defense from the start. I actually started a running list of the weapons they used throughout this match.
There's a few of them.
Let's go.
Yeah,
What's
I mean,
the list?
I'll just go ahead and give you, just to know what we're in for, the chair, of course, the ring bell, which was the first thing they used, wooden pallets. I counted those as weapons.
Trust me, those count.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that.
They use the trash can. They use the steel steps, of course, for some of Foley's iconic step spots. They use the announce table. They use handcuffs. They use thumbtacks. And they use a 2x4 with barbed wire.
They actually use two 2x4s wrapped in barbed wire, but we'll get into
Get that in just a minute. Yes.
Okay, so after the ring bell incident, he hit Cactus Jack with the ring bell. Jack almost has no effect on him, right? So Triple H goes and gets a chair and gets in the ring, and JR says one of my favorite lines from the beginning of this match, and he goes, "It's like waving a red cloth in front of a bull, having that steel chair in the ring for Cactus Jack." That's something that King says. And King really plays up this idea that Cactus Jack is in his element and that Triple H isn't, and that this match was built for Cactus Jack and it's unfair. And King says another thing. He says, a street fight, you act like this man's not from the street, talking about Triple H. And it's just from the set, Cactus Jack has all the momentum, and Triple H is in his world.
Well, I love when Triple H hits him with like this brutal chair shot to like right to the head, but then he throws the chair down. Jack just gets up and then just immediately assaults him. And I'm like, what were you thinking? You don't turn your back to this man. And they go out to the ring, and then, there's a backdrop over the guardrail on the concrete, and it just looks so brutal. And it's like, oh, man.
So a backdrop onto the concrete looks so much worse than a backdrop onto anything else.
Agreed.
The sound it makes is just flat thump. And it's
It
like, ugh.
hurts just watching it. So interesting thing about the chair shot to the head. So Mick Foley had an interview about chair shots and all the hardcore matches that he had.
No one took nastier headshots
than
than
Mick Foley.
he did.
Oh my god. So and he loved it. He loved it.
Yeah.
But okay, Paul. So Paul made a face. Who took nastier headshots?
Masato Tanaka.
Ooh, okay.
All right.
He right.
Yeah,
He right. All right.
But I digress.
Okay. But okay, so Mick Foley said about chair shots to the head,
Yeah.
which are banned now.
Right,
You
not a
don't
thing.
do them. You watch today, they only do them to the back. So a chair shot to the head, Mick Foley said, a lot of times at wrestling, you have to sell. It's called, and he went into what selling is, and you have to make it look like it hurt to tell the story. And he's like, with a chair shot to the face, there is no sell. It just hurts.
I can attest to that.
I believe it. Yeah, yeah, I totally believe it. And there were moments in this match, when he gets handcuffed, where you're watching and you're like, please don't hit him in the head while he's got the handcuffs on. And I know I've seen this match 100 times, but I still tense up every time I see that moment. Right. The match immediately kind of goes to the outside of the ring.
Oh, yes.
And they start going up the entrance ramp.
Oh my gosh.
One thing I need to point out about this. Before they go up to the front of the ring, there is a fan dressed in a chef's outfit. And
Yes.
he has a sign that says, I cooked for The Rock. I just wanted to point that out. I love that moment so much.
I mean, we need a running list. Dustin, write this down. We need a running list of the best fan signs that we see.
This is good.
Because yes, please, because I cooked for The Rock is fucking great. And if you don't get it, obviously,
If you don't get it, you don't get it. But
okay, yeah, if you don't get it,
Well, there's that sign, and there's a million Foley is God signs this night.
yeah. And okay, so if anybody else saw a sign, please email us and let us know. This is a last match standing at gmail.com. Email us and let us know if you saw a sign. Also at last match cast on
There's
Twitter.
Very good.
There's some good ones in this night.
But I was super excited to see them go into the crowd because last episode, if you remember, we talked about this. We said, it's almost like word for word, we said, if Earl Hebner was out there in the crowd, he would have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
Because the last time was Ken Shamrock out there, and it kind of made sense, and he was able to follow him. But guess who was in the crowd with him this time, Spencer?
Earl Hebner, as a matter of fact.
And it was just as jam-packed as it was in 97 because you're in Madison Square Garden.
Right.
The difference maker this time was head of security, Jim Dotson.
Yeah, I think that is a key that stands out is that in the Brett Austin match, Ken Shamrock is the one holding a lot of these people back. Earl Hebner was not holding people back in this crowd, But I'm so glad you brought that up. It's fantastic. But we go through the crowd, we get back to the stage area, and that's where the trash can comes into play. And then there's a suplex onto those wooden pallets. That's the first major spot,
yes.
so to speak, in this match. And it just
Triple
talk
H.
about a back body drop on the concrete. The suplex on the wooden pallets was.
And then Triple H gets a very nasty gash in his calf from those pallets. It is gross. And he immediately tries to look at it, and Earl actually looks at it and asks him, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm good. Let's keep going." And they kept going.
And it was gross the rest of the match. They zoom in on it a couple of times because it was a brutal puncture. Something as this match sort of kind of goes back towards the ring, and Cactus Jack has control, right? Because he's suplexed Hunter onto the pallet. He's got the trash can, the whole thing. He's got control. King says something here. He says, if this was Mankind, Triple H would have beat him a long time ago. But because it's Cactus Jack, he's having a lot more trouble.
Oh, yeah, but they had the suplex onto the pallets, and then Jack gets a trash can and smacks Triple H with it, and then he's going to hit him. He's going to DDT him onto it, and then Triple H counters with his own suplex, and that's when King says the line. And then before he could do anything, Jack does what I call the dish punches. He throws Triple H into the ring and goes, dish, 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 bang, bang.
Good morning.
Hope you're not listening to this in your office. But you're right. Those are iconic Foley punches. They really are. And that's how you kind of know Foley is firing up, right? So this is when we get back into the ring and we
Bang, bang.
we and we see the appearance of the 2x4 with barbed wire.
Ooh, that
Oh
comes
my
out.
God. The first 2x4 wrapped in barbed wire.
The one that's actually wrapped in barbed wire. When that comes out, the crowd gets so loud, and you're like, "Oh my God in heaven, what's going to happen there?" Well, he goes to hit Triple H with it. Triple H gives him a low blow, and then he smacks Jack with it. And when you watch, every time he hits him, it's getting caught on Jack's shirt. That's just clearly barbed wire. Jack fights back, and he goes to low blow Triple H with it. Then Earl Hebner grabs it and gives it to Hugo Savinovich behind the Spanish announce team. Amidst the super loud, the crowd is booing so much when this happens.
Can we pause a minute to talk about how awesome Hugo Savinovich is?
He really is. And I don't know if you need to pay close attention to his outfit on this particular night. It looks like he's wearing a shower curtain over his tux or his suit.
Well, he knew how bloody this match was going to be.
He
Can
just
you
came
blame him?
prepared. He came totally prepared.
I saw the look on his face when Earl handed it. He was like, "What do you give this to me for?" He looks so bewildered, and the crowd is booing. And Jack immediately gets in Earl's face. Like, "Where is it?" And he immediately stooges it off and points to you. Jack walks over and punches him out.
He
and then
punches
Carlos
him in the face. He punches Hugo.
And then Carlos Cabrera hands it back to him. "Please take it. Get away from me, scary man." Now, the one he hands back to him is not the same one. It actually has the plastic tip barbed wire. But because we've already seen what this can do, you kind of forgive that because he immediately whacks Triple H in the face with it, who is a bloody mess immediately.
And this is... Go ahead, Landon.
Thank God they didn't fuck that up.
Yeah.
Because if Triple H would have been hit in the face with the non-plastic barbed wire, this would have been a lot different of a match.
I agree.
JR still says, this is great, large parts of Cactus Jack's epidermis is left on that barbed wire. Yeah, anytime JR uses words like epidermis, it's a gross moment. It's a gross moment. And so you see this sort of really, really cool imagery when they're back in the ring. Triple H is on the apron, and Cactus Jack has the barbed wire over the rope, and he's doing the grinding the barbed wire on Triple H's face. Yeah, and Hunter is just bleeding profusely,
so much blood.
and it just shows you how intense Cactus Jack is and how out he was.
Have it on the line. Jack is just sadistic with that, grating the barbed wire on Triple H's face. Then we get the famous Triple H is bleeding like a horse. He goes to do the pile driver on the announce table, and Triple H reverses it into a back body drop, and the table doesn't break.
It sort of half snaps.
Kind of breaks in half, but doesn't crumble, and they fall over.
It's the most realistic looking table break
It's
from
awesome.
an announce
Oh, I
table.
agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome. So that happens, and you think Hunter's in control. You think, no way, Cactus Jack is getting up. He got the back body drop on the table. Not going to happen. So they get back into the ring, and this is something that I love. They kind of go back and forth for a little while. Cactus Jack, he ends up hitting a bulldog onto the 2x4 on Triple H, right? And Triple H kicks out at 2. But what I really loved about this moment is if you look at Cactus Jack, he smiles after Triple H kicks out.
Because he's not done with him yet.
That character that he was able to be and portray on that night, you just knew as soon as you saw that smile, like he was glad because he wanted more damage.
And we get the Cactus Jack clothesline over the top rope. Scares me every time I see it, but somehow no one ever gets hurt doing it. And then we get this vicious hip toss into the steel stairs. And I'm like, oh, this is why this man can't walk right now. But it's just, it looks so great and it sounds amazing. And then he Irish whips him into it. And when he does, he just flies over the stairs.
The classic Foley flip over the stairs.
They're beautiful.
Oh, it's
I mean, they're
just
destructive. And it's
devastating.
devastating, but they're beautiful. And JR says right there in that moment, he says, Triple H has taken his game to the next level here tonight, or maybe a new low, depending on your perspective.
Oh, great line.
It's a great line. It's a great line because now you're starting to wonder, is Triple H capable of what it's going to take to beat a man like Cactus Jack? And the steps that throwing him into the steps, it looks like Triple H might be able to be as brutal as he gets.
Could you imagine how great wrestling would still be today if commentary was as good as it was back then?
I can.
If they still told stories?
It's a game changer.
I digress.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. It's hard not to bring that up.
But then, gentlemen, it happens.
It does.
Triple H walks over to Howard Finkel and he retrieves the black bag he got earlier, and it has handcuffs in it. And
wait. Oh, the handcuffs. Ooh.
And we immediately get allusions to Royal Rumble 99 where Mick Foley took a dozen unprotected chair shots while handcuffed.
With the handcuffs. But that type of storytelling, like that was just a throwback to a year before. 12 months before we had the handcuffs, and immediately you think about that. When was the last time you saw something like that in wrestling now?
Long form storytelling.
You just don't see it.
No, not anymore.
And so watching, I loved it, and I'm so glad that the handcuffs are brought into play because it adds another layer to
So
this match.
did anyone else notice the first attempt at putting the handcuffs on looked super botched? Mm-hmm. Okay, so but did you see what happened after? So they're going at it, and instead of just like obviously making it out to be a botch and then trying it again, Mick backs off a little bit. He totally saves the segment. So he like creates some space and like acts like he's actually fighting back, and then Triple H fights his way back to get the handcuffs on, and it saved it. It made what could have been a really ugly botch look like it was just more part of like him fighting it off and added to the realism of the match.
Well, at one point he like grabs the handcuffs, starts punching Triple H, like get off of me, and
yeah,
Triple H
he fights back.
He fights back, yeah. And Triple H hits him with a bulldog, I believe, and that's when he locks the handcuffs in. And then he grabs a chair from earlier in the night, and he hits him so hard that the top of the chair breaks off.
The damn chair.
I'm pretty sure it hit the guy with the "I Cooked Rock" poster. Like I'm pretty sure it hit him.
Well, it flew into the crowd, so it definitely hit somebody.
I cooked rock.
I cooked
man.
for the Rock.
No, I like the shortened one. Let's go with that.
Well, then we get my favorite one of the entire match is Mick is crawling out of the ring handcuffed, and he's kneeling down in the alleyway set. Triple H has got the chair, and he just looks up at Triple H, and he's tears in his eyes. Come on, hit me! You're gonna hit me! Hit me! Hit me! Do it! And sure enough, bam! He hits him, and then immediately the Rock runs out with another chair and whacks Triple H in the head. And then a cop comes out. It's like he had his Streets of Rage 2 power up. A cop comes out and he unlocks the handcuffs. Like there's been an injustice here, folks.
So let's pause here to talk about The Rock for a second, right? So you can argue whether or not it makes sense for him to come in to, to beat up a heel. Because typically when you have a run-in in a match, it's a heel coming in to beat up a face and all that. That's kind of what you're used to. But so that's an argument, I think, for another day. But The Rock was a rising star at the time. And there were some awesome matches between Triple H and The Rock around this time period, 2000, 2001. And I think the reason that those matches were so great, and this is pure speculation, this is also, I need to give a little bit of credit to Solo Monster Sounds Off, top 10 championship matches in Royal Rumble history series. This match was number 2 in that series, so thanks, Solo Monster. I've seen a little bit of your thunder here. But so it was due to the fact, I think the reason those matches were so good was due to the fact that Triple H might have been a little jealous of how The Rock grew to popularity so quickly. Because if you remember, The Rock is a main eventing WrestleMania 2 years after debuting, maybe even a little less. Whereas Triple H is mid-card 5 years after he debuts. So I really feel like there's a little bit of personal jealousy that goes into play here because if you watch a Rock Triple H match, there's always something a little bit more going on.
You know, this reminds me of something pretty recent, actually, from only a couple years ago on an episode of SmackDown, just a couple years ago. The Rock was there, and there's this backstage segment of The Rock in Triple H's office, and this is when they throw around, the challenge: any WrestleMania, anywhere, anytime, you tell me. And they haven't seen each other and been competitors against each other in 15 years. But instantly, the chemistry is there like that. And it makes you want nothing else but a Triple H Rock match at WrestleMania. But it just speaks to how personal things probably were back then, for Triple H especially.
I think I'd say that, because these two those two were magic in the ring together. But I don't think you get there without this feud. Without Cactus Jack and Triple H, I don't think you get Triple H as that top heel to fight the top babyface in The Rock.
No, that's right.
So The Rock comes out, he hits Triple H with a chair. Cactus Jack gets uncuffed by the police officer, and you think, this is it. You know, Cactus Jack has all the momentum. He's going to win this match. Like, it almost feels like it's impossible now. Surely Triple H is going to lose, but they're not over yet, right? The match isn't over yet. Cactus Jack ends up hitting a pile driver on Hunter on the announce table, and it doesn't break. It's just brutal looking. The pile driver, Cactus Jack delivered that so well, and at that point, it's starting to feel like Hunter has no chance.
There's no way he's going to win this
There's
match.
no chance.
No.
But then Cactus Jack isn't done just yet. Then he goes and gets a bag. Not the bag of handcuffs that Hunter had earlier, but a bag of thumbtacks.
What I love about it is when he pulls out, what's that bag? Oh, I think that's a sandbag, JR. He's going to hit with a sandbag. Those things weigh like 20 pounds. And then the second the thumbtacks start
We all
pouring
wish
out,
it was a sandbag.
there's got to be hundreds, thousands of thumbtacks in that bag. It's like, oh, and then Stephanie
And
runs
this is when
out.
Stephanie comes back out.
Ooh, it's like, okay, this is getting scary.
Because now she's concerned, right? So that's the story that tells. When Stephanie comes back out, she's concerned. Instead of, I need to come help him win the match, it's, I need to be concerned. And so the thumbtacks get poured out into the ring. Cactus Jack goes to pile drive Hunter onto the thumbtacks, and he gets a back body drop onto the thumbtacks. Earlier, you said there is no spot where a back body drop hurts worse than the announce table or on the concrete. But I don't know. The thumbtacks. You feel that when you see it.
And then he rolls in and out of the thumbtacks where JR says, Cactus Jack is a human pin cushion.
Let's talk about the thumbtacks.
Okay, I'm in.
Okay. It's a big old bag of thumbtacks.
Yep.
Are they real?
Yeah.
Or are they
Does it
just
matter?
like, are they sequins? Are
No.
they like plastic?
No. Those are
Some
real.
part of my brain is like, please don't let those be real thumbtacks.
Well, if
like,
you ever notice-
I'm in denial.
If you ever notice, anytime that Mick Foley does the thumbtacks, he's the only person that ever gets the thumbtacks because they're real thumbtacks and nobody else has taken that
You
shit.
seen
Randy Orton.
Randy Orton?
Randy Orton was the-
2004.
That was the
A
exception.
match that will be on this list.
Yeah, but what I'll say to that is, it's conceivable that they could be something like sequins that just happen to stick to their body or to their face or whatever. But when you see a thumbtack that has come out after it's been stuck, you see sort of the little mini puncture there. So, Landon, I'm sorry.
It's sick. It's the most gruesome finish in a wrestling match in WWF.
You're exactly right. So Cactus Jack gets the back body drop. Triple H hits him with a pedigree, just a regular pedigree, somewhere else in the ring.
1, 2, kick out.
The loudest pop probably of the night.
For sure.
And the camera immediately cuts to a Foley as God sign when that happens.
Oh, great sign.
Oh, it's so great. Like, oh man, he might come back, and then he gets a second pedigree onto the thumbtack.
And this is
Face
when
first. Ugh.
Triple H was doing the pedigree where he held your arms up the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
There was no, I'm going to put my arms out for protection. You were getting all of it.
Well, and Triple that had to hurt Trips too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like he's going knees first into these tacks. Like, ouch.
What I
Which
love
we've
is
determined are real.
what I love is whenever if you watch Earl count, he's counting on him. So he goes 1, you see him shake his hand. 2, he shakes his hand again. Then finds a spot. 3, and he immediately like shake his hand.
There are a few things, Paul, that I love more, and you see this a lot in like Falls Count Anywhere matches. There's nothing I love more than a referee who acts like he's hurting his hand when he's counting. I love that so much.
I don't know. The
don't
cartwheel referee is one of my favorite things.
So
I mean, I don't think Earl's faking right there. I'm pretty sure he did the count on thumbtack.
it's so great. It's just so great. But the pedigree onto the thumbtacks, Triple H wins. And it shows his character. It was his huge, I'm the heel, but I escape with the win, and you hate him for it. And this is something that he would become known for throughout the course of the next 6+ years, as we've talked about.
And he immediately just collapses out of the ring and has to be helped out by EMTs. He can't stand, and he won.
And he won the match.
He cannot stand up.
This is another interesting parallel from our episode last week, in that the winner of the match is the last one to leave and had difficulty leaving.
King says in this moment, JR says something to the effect of, "We need to get help out here for these guys." King says, "The game goes first. Get help for the game first," because King, the whole time on commentary throughout the entirety of the match, there was no subjective commentary.
Oh no.
JR was rooting for Mick Foley. King was rooting for Triple H. And that just added so much more to it. It was so much fun to listen to on commentary. But Hunter gets put on a stretcher, gets wheeled up the ramp, so to speak, gets right up to the top of the stage, and Cactus Jack decides not to let him go.
That's not good enough. He's not bloody enough. He pulls him off the stretcher. No, sorry, he didn't pull him off the stretcher. He rolls the stretcher back to the ring, and then he throws him to where he gets slingshotted back into the ring, hits him with the 2x4 one more time. Cactus Jack music plays, and he walks out.
And keep in mind, Triple H wasn't on a stretcher because that was like a stretcher spot. Triple H was on a stretcher because he couldn't walk because he had a huge gash in the back of his leg from early in the match. Mm-hmm. And after the match, there's actually footage that you can go watch of them stitching up that nasty gash. And it's rough.
And it's purple and bruised too. It just looks terrible. And that's 5 minutes into the match that happens.
And he just kept going, which is something that he was good at his whole career. Favorite moments?
For me, it's whenever he's handcuffed in the alley and he's just shouting, "Hit me," and there's tears coming out of his eyes. And like Triple H is like reluctant to hit him as he's like, "Fuck's sake, man. Like this guy wants me to brutalize him." And then of course The Rock comes out and smacks him in the head with a chair. I love that.
Crazy heavy moment. My favorite moment is, I don't know if we touched on it. There's a point in the match where I believe it's Mick Foley delivers a pile driver to Triple H, and it is the best looking pile driver. So I've seen a lot of pile drivers in my day. Okay, I've seen a lot of wrestling matches. I watched this pile driver and I cringed. And it was just a pile driver. It wasn't a tombstone. It wasn't a jumping flaming, whatever. It was a pile driver. And I mean, that was my favorite moment of the match.
There are a few guys, and there's obviously other people that have delivered the pile driver, but just as a regular pile driver, Mankind did that wonderfully.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite moments is one that I alluded to earlier, was that shot of Triple H on the apron getting the 2x4 grilled across his face from Cactus Jack, because that image of Hunter screaming in pain with the blood just absolutely pouring down his face,
completely covered.
It was just one of those moments that you take away from it. You see it and you're like, I'm going to remember this. And I do 19 years later.
Yeah, that's around the time we get the line, "The cleric has flowed at the Royal Rumble." He's referring to the Crimson Mask, as JR also put it. Like, just the amount of blood was ridiculous.
So this is a match. This is going to be one of the more brutal matches that we cover throughout the course of this podcast. And it was a match that lived up to the hype and exceeded it. I mean, it was just such a great match, and I'm really curious to see where it's going to end up on our list. But JR says something at the end of this match that sums it up, as he tends to do quite well. And he says, "Cactus Jack has left the WWF champion a bloody, quivering mass in what has to be the damnedest WWF title match that any of us have ever witnessed."
Chilling. I mean, that's it.
He's the best.
That's all you need to know.
And that's it. So where does this rank? Right now, it only has one match to compete with.
All right, here we go.
Number one is, as things stood coming into this podcast, was Bret Hart, Steve Austin submission match. Where does this fall? Is this number one or is this number two for now?
I'm going to be honest. For me, I like this match more than Bret Hart and Steve Austin. But that is purely nostalgia talking. That is purely 10-year-old me wanting to see Cactus Jack brutalize Triple H so much that he retires from wrestling and stops beating up my heroes.
Landon is staring a laser through you right now.
That's why I'm not looking at him.
Okay, so here's the thing. I totally get the nostalgia bit. I started watching wrestling after both of those matches. And so both of these were kind of me retroactively going back and getting those storylines, and the storytelling that took place in front of this match and during this match were absolutely stellar. I get it. And it was gory, and, I was super into it, as, 13-year-old getting into wrestling, like, oh, look at this. This is cool. As a mature viewer, going back and watching it as who is telling the most important story, and what is like truly a technical masterpiece, I will never not say Bret Hart and Steve Austin together in a ring, regardless of the match, is a technical masterpiece. It just sticks in my mind as one of the best matches of all time. I can't put it above that.
So the bar has been set. Now this is only match 2. We've got 98 to go, right? And I don't know if Landon's gonna ever have one topped. I will also say it goes as number 2 for now. Dustin was also feeling that. He immediately shot up a 2. Brett and Austin is fantastic. And this match here at the Royal Rumble, Cactus Jack, Triple H, phenomenal stuff. And it should be remembered for being one of the greatest. It was certainly one of the most brutal. And so it leaves us with a lasting memory, but I think it has to be number 2 for now.
Completely agree.
I understand.
I thought you would.
Yeah. So the list as it stands, the number 1 match of all time, Steve Austin, Bret Hart. Number 2, Cactus Jack and Triple H. Let us know if you agree with that. Maybe there's something that we totally missed that we just haven't talked about, that you want us to know why Cactus Jack and Triple H had a better match. So that's at Last Matchcast on Twitter, or lastmatchstanding@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts. We'll share them on our next episode. And this match was a lot of fun. It was brutal.
It was.
If I had to sum this match up in one word, it's carnage.
Oh, I agree. That's it. Before you said that, I was thinking carnage.
It's the perfect word for it. But I can't wait to see what we do next.
Yeah, well, the great thing here is that the whole idea behind this podcast is listener contribution, right? We want to hear what matches you want us to cover, and we've actually gotten a couple of recommendations from you guys, and I think maybe we'll take a break from the Twitter poll, and we're going to go ahead and do it. I think we should probably just go ahead and do one of the recommendations that we got.
Yeah, for sure. So moving forward, look for the Twitter poll, because that will be back. But as long as you guys are sending in recommendations, those are the ones we want to do. We want to get to your recommendations because we want you to have something you want to listen to. And so if you have an idea for a recommendation that you think you want us to cover, hit us at our email address at lastmatchstanding@gmail.com. Hit us on Facebook. Hit us on Twitter at lastmatchcast. You can find us there as well. Super easy to interact with us, and we would love to hear from you, whether it's for a recommendation or any feedback of any kind. This is for you, and we love having you guys listen to it. So let us know what you want, because we'd love to give that to you guys. But until next week, we will be here. I'm Spencer.
I'm Paul.
And I'm Landon.
And this is
Last Match Standing.